for joining us virtually. Participation in the meeting is limited to members of the board and to those the board have invited in advance to take part. I would like to acknowledge and welcome our ex officio trustees or their designees who are in attendance. Dr. Tanya Garcia, who is the Deputy Secretary and Commissioner for Post-Secondary Higher Education with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. I would also like to welcome our new trustees who were recently appointed to the board. We have 3 new Commonwealth trustees: Bill Ward Jr., Jack Teig, and Rob Rickson. I would also like to welcome John Surma, who joins our board in his capacity as the new UPMC Board of Directors Chair. Short bios on the new trustees were provided in advance of this meeting through Board Advantage. They bring a wealth of talent, experience, skills, and expertise to the work of this board. I know that I speak for the university community in expressing our thanks and appreciation for their willingness to serve this university. We look forward to your contributions as members of this board. Sadly, since the fall meeting in September, we have lost 2 former colleagues, Joseph Hardy and Albert Primo. Joseph Hardy, a Swanson School of Engineering Distinguished Alumni recipient, served as a special trustee from 1989 until 1992. Joe also served on the Katz Graduate School of Business Board of Visitors for 13 years, beginning in 1991. He founded 84 Lumber, the largest privately owned building materials supplier in the construction industry. Mr. Hardy was a significant philanthropic contributor to many charitable organizations and universities, including his alma mater, Pitt. His very generous donations spread across multiple areas of the university, including athletics, engineering, CATS, and the UPMC Hillman Cancer Center. 84 Lumber continues to be a consistent sponsor of many Pitt and UPMC events. We are forever grateful for Joe's generosity and service to the university. Albert Primo was an alumni trustee from 1993 to 1997. He worked at Pittsburgh's KDKA-TV. During his tenure, he was a news writer, a reporter, anchor, and eventually assistant news director at that station. Al was a pioneer in his field, expanding news from 15 to 30 minutes and including the on-the-scene reporters in newscasts. Believing that reporters should reflect their communities, he pushed for a more diverse reporter pool. In recognition of his contribution to the field of broadcast news, the university named a classroom in the Cathedral of Learning in his honor in 1997. The university celebrated his achievements in 2000, making him a member of the inaugural class of Legacy Laureates. Al was a dedicated member of the board, and we will always be grateful for his service. In addition, several trustees have lost beloved family members, as have many members of our Pitt family and local community. On behalf of the board, I offer my sincere condolences to the Hardy and Primo families and all who have recently lost loved ones. Please join me in a moment of silence in their memory. Thank you. The minutes of the September Board of Trustees meeting was distributed to you in advance of today's meeting and can be found in the meeting materials. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Do we need to record the opposition?
No, you're fine.
That's all right. Okay. All right, thank you. The minutes of the September Board of Trustees meeting as circulated are hereby approved. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the Chair, Eva Bloom, and Vice Chair Anantha Shaker, and all the members of the Chancellor Search Committee for the outstanding work that they have done to date. They have made significant progress, and we are meeting the targets that we set for this effort in June of last year. We will now receive updates from the committees of the board, which have held a public meeting since our fall Board of Trustees meeting in September. I'll call upon Trustee Pete Verischetti for the report of the Property and Facilities Committee. Pete.
Thank you, Chairperson Browning. The Property and Facilities Committee has held 3 public meetings since the September meeting. During the public committee meeting held on November 10th, 2022, the committee approved 5 projects, including the replacement of the Cathedral Learning's original domestic water system in the amount of $7.3 million, construction of the Arena and Sports Performance Center, a major component of the Victory Heights Initiative. The project will provide a hub for sports medicine, athletic training, and strength and conditioning, and will create competition and practice venues for the wrestling, volleyball, gymnastics, cheer, dance, and mascot programs. The project was approved in the amount of $240 million. Also approved was an expansion to the Allen McGee Scaife Hall renovation for the Winter Institute for Simulation, Education, and Research, commonly known as WISER. This project expansion was approved in the amount of $2 million, bringing the amended total renovation cost to $32 million. Renovation of the Eatery, the university's largest dining hall facility in the Litchfield Towers. The project was approved in the amount of $27.5 million. In conversion of the University Club's former family house space to provide much needed residential space for 81 students. This project was approved in the amount of $5.1 million. Combined, these projects are projected to generate 2,253 construction and support jobs for the state and regional economies. The committee also approved acquisition of the Next Tier Bank property located at 3455 Forbes Avenue in the amount of $6.2 million. At the December 21st public meeting held with the Property and Facilities Committee, the committee approved the acquisition of an approximately 3-acre parcel of land known as the Lot 18 property within the Hazelwood Green development for the proposed Bioforge project. The acquisition was approved in the amount of $10 million, subject to final due diligence and execution of a satisfactory purchase and sales agreement. The university will seek separate approval for design and construction of the proposed facility, as well as a proposed tenant lease at future committee meetings. During a public committee meeting held on February 23rd, 2023, the committee approved 2 projects, including repairs to the Hines Chapel spire in the amount of $11.5 million to address deterioration in the structural steel supports, and a project to build a new home for the university's 7 Tesla MRI within UPMC Presbyterian. This project was approved in the amount of $6.6 million. Combined, these projects are projected to generate 118 construction and support jobs for the state and regional economies. The committee also approved a new lease at the box office at Southside Works for the School of Health and Rehabilitation Sciences to support its hybrid Doctor of Physical Therapy program. Chairperson Browning, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Pete. I would like to now call on the Board Vice Chair and Chair of the Investment Committee, Lou Costello, for the report of the Investment Committee. Lou.
Thank you, Chairperson Browning. The
the investment committee held a Zoom public meeting on January 25th, 2023 that was live streamed on YouTube. At that meeting, Mr. Jeffrey Chowdhury presented a background statement in a resolution recommending that the investment committee authorized an amendment to and restatement of the statement of governance, investment objectives, and policies for the Consolidated Endowment Fund. Mr. Chowdhury stated that the primary changes were to the asset allocation policy and associated benchmarks. The investment committee voted to approve the resolution. Chairperson Browning, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Lou. Trustee Gary Brownlee, would you please provide the report of the audit committee?
Thank you, Chairperson Browning. The audit committee held an information meeting followed by a public meeting via Zoom on October 6, 2022. Thurman Wingrove, University Controller, provided the committee with a comprehensive presentation of the university's consolidated financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2022. The university's independent auditor, KPMG, informed the audit committee that their audit of the consolidated financial statements had been completed and that KPMG issued an unmodified opinion thereon. There were no proposed unrecorded adjustments arising during the audit that were material in relation to the financial statements. There were no disagreements with management. There were no difficulties in dealing with management relating to the performance of the audit. And there were no material weaknesses in internal accounting controls, and KPMG received the full cooperation of management and staff during the course of the audit. At the public meeting of the audit committee, the audited consolidated financial statements were approved by the audit committee, and a copy of the audited financial statements have been distributed to the full board. Additionally, at the public meeting, the audit committee voted to retain KPMG as the university's independent auditor and tax advisor for fiscal year 2023. Chairman Browning, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Gary. We will now ask Chancellor Gallagher to provide us with his report. Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apparently chancellors are the only people that can't talk without speaking, so I apologize. First of all, good morning, everyone. I want to thank and appreciate our remarkable board for a lot of hard work behind the scenes preceding this session. You recall that the last public meeting in September was kind of the State of the Union address, and I presented an update, annual update that summarized the university's performance from that fiscal year 2022. And rest assured, I'm not going to do that again for you today, but I do want to share some news and updates since the September board meeting to summarize what we know about the current state of the university. And my spoiler alert up front will be that, everything we discussed in September remains true. The university is doing remarkably well, and we're very well positioned. That's true whether you compare us to our peers or whether you compare us to our past performance. So let me take a look at a couple of areas. First of all, I'd like to start with admissions. We've talked about this, but the demand for a PIT education is at an all-time high. So for 2 years running now, we've received more than 50,000 applications for admission to the Pittsburgh campus. Last year's record was an all-time high for the university at 53,000, and that was for the entire admission cycle. Under our rolling admissions policy, applications for the fall of 2023 are still coming in, so we're not completed, but we've already broken last year's record. As of February 17th, we have received more than 55,000 applications. That's 10% more than February 17th of last year. And current projections, I'm looking at Mark to make sure he stays comfortable with my projection here, is we might be looking at somewhere around 58,000 applications when this is all said and done. He's giving me the thumbs up. So that's astonishing. But let me talk a little bit about what this might mean. So over the last few years, we've discussed this shift in demand, this rapid pace of increase. And you can see on the chart, it's really quite dramatic. And the question has been, is this a cyclical event? Is this a reaction post-COVID? And we're going to see it come back to the baseline, more in line with what other large research institutions are experiencing, or have we adjusted things structurally? Is the university able to go out and seek applications in some new way? The longer this is going on, this is reinforcing our confidence to say that we believe this is structural, that we will see a more pronounced growth and that these increases are going to be sustained. Now, this is due to a lot of things. A lot of it is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into the process of admissions and expanding that process around the country. But it also is a reflection of Pitt's brand, of its recognition as a desirable place to go. And that brand is not only strengthening, but it's getting broader. It's extending across the country. But let me put this a little bit in national context. So with record admissions, there is still stiff competition. But the nature of that competition changes. So what we've plotted here is some of the latest national enrollment data, and we've done this by sector. And by sector, what I mean is by selectivity. So this data includes current first-year students who enrolled in the fall. It distinguishes institutions by selectivity, which is essentially the ratio of applicants to admissions. Less selective institutions are clustered to the left, and that would include many of the nation's community colleges and two-year programs, and highly selective institutions to the right. It's often referred to as Ivy League, but very selective, very competitive schools. To orient you, the University of Pittsburgh campus, the Oakland campus, is in the cluster of more selective institutions, the second from the right. Our regional campuses would be more on the left, one of the three buckets there. And the bars represent the percentage change in enrollment over the past 3 years between 2020, 2021, and 2022. So the first year includes the pandemic, and you see everybody was down. And then you see this very asymmetric response where the selective institutions are seeing demand and the flow has not come back to the less selective institutions. And in fact, the gap is persistent and it's growing. What this means is that the competition is different depending what kind of institution you are, because you're in a different market. For a less selective school, there is intense competition but it's between institutions who are competing with each other for a smaller and smaller pool of students. For the more selective schools, there is intense competition, but it's among the students who are competing through these applications to get into this small number of selective institutions. So on the regional campuses here at the University of Pittsburgh, we are competing with other institutions. And so that means we have to offer high quality and distinctive programs to break out of that pack and be responsive to the needs of those students who are applying to those institutions. And that includes a focus on job relevant degrees, support for first generation students, financial aid, and of course, offering an outstanding student experience. On the Oakland campus, where the applicants are numerous, it is an enviable position to be in, but we need to be mindful that there is still competition. But now our competition will be increasingly measured by yield. How many of those applicants turn into admissions? And that requires us to keep doing the things that got us here in the first place, namely recruiting and financial aid, academic programs of the highest quality, a meaningful student experience, and support for our alumni after they graduate. All of these things matter. Now, let me turn a little bit to student experience and student accolades. Student success is, of course, one of the factors driving our positive brand and our enrollment trends. And since September, we have a couple more highlights for you. In the current year, we've had a record of 28 recipients of the U.S. State Department's Benjamin Gilman International Scholarship. Now, this is a Pell Grant recipient eligible program for students as they study abroad. So we're very pleased with that, particularly following all the disruption in study abroad programs that we saw through the pandemic. We also had 4 Pitt undergraduates who were awarded the inaugural Voyager Scholarship. That term refers to what's called the Obama Chesky Scholarship for Public Service. It was created by the Obamas and by Brian Chesky, who's the CEO of Airbnb, and it provides up to $50,000 to reduce or eliminate student debt. And the programming is to help develop young leaders in public service. Pitt students receive 4 of the first 100 Voyager Awards. That's the most in Pennsylvania and it's the highest among any public institution in the country. We also have Pitt's first Mitchell Scholar, Alex Firestein, who will pursue graduate study in Ireland through this extremely competitive scholarship program. And once again, and I know you're almost getting tired of it, but it's important to emphasize what a big deal this is. We were once again named a top producer of Fulbright scholarships by the U.S. Department of State through their Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, with 9 more Fulbright scholarships in the current year. And if our students weren't doing as much, I want to turn to some of our faculty. Our faculty continue to earn some of the highest honors in their fields. In the last few months alone, we saw Gwen Soa, who many of you know, in our School of Medicine, elected to the National Academy of Medicine, one of the highest achievements in that field. And also 2 Pitt faculty members were named to the National Academy of Inventors, Joseph Glorioso and Ronald Montalaro. And of course, Roy Cooper continues to rack up recognition. This year, he was just recently elected to the National Inventors Hall of Fame for his exceptional work, as many of you know, on assistive technologies and mobility for wheelchair users in particular. That's a good segue into some of the research achievements here. Of course, one of the ways our faculty contribute to our mission is through sponsored research. And of course, that's a competitive process too, where they're competing against peers for the available federal funding. And in 2022, we had a spectacularly good year. And today I'm going to focus on the grants from the National Institutes of Health, by far the largest funder of research in the United States. And because of our large health sciences program, the largest funder of sponsored research at the university. What happens in September is that the preliminary data is released by the federal government for the last fiscal year. So NIH made theirs public in October, and the results for the University of Pittsburgh were remarkable. We jumped from 11th position by that same ranking the prior year to number 3 in the country. That places us behind only Johns Hopkins and the University of California at San Francisco. And ahead, obviously, of everyone else, including perennial peers like Duke, Penn, Stanford, and Michigan. Behind the relative sort of horse race side of these rankings, for me, the real story is the growth. The Pitt is a mature research organization, and yet we saw 13% year-over-year growth, $77 million of new grants between 2021 and 2022. And we believe that's an all-time one-year and high for an increase for the University of Pittsburgh. What's behind some of this? Well, let me talk a little bit something that we've discussed with this board for several years now. Pitt is an exceptional university in the single investigator style grants. One of the areas of growth for us is to grow and increase our share of large multi-investigator and center type grants. And so we've developed several internal mechanisms to create and support research teams who are competing for those grants. And it's now beginning to show up and pay off. So when we broke down the year-to-year increases by grant size, you will see that we had a good year across the board. The very largest grants tend to be dominated by 1 or 2. And so that's always the noisiest one. But the growth in all other areas was up, but the grant size in the $5 to $10 million, which are almost all multi-investigator center type of grants, was up 91%, which is remarkable. And we're encouraged by this, and we believe this is, again, a systematic change. So while I've covered NIH support here, we're also seeing major research support increases from other public funding sources, including the National Science Foundation, the National Endowment for the Humanities, but also from private foundations, industry, and other sources of sponsored research funding. On the innovation and economic development side, We've also continued to see positive developments in the university's role as an engine of growth, an engine of opportunity for the communities near and around our campuses. Now, I'm not going to talk in this occasion about Bioforge and some of the recent activity, but I want to focus on some recent developments that have occurred in the first half of the new fiscal year from July to December. Pitt was issued 56 new U.S. patents. This will put us on record as one of our strongest years. And our students are continuing to discover new opportunities to become innovators themselves as we open the Big Idea Center. And here I must give a shout out to Bob Randall and the Randall family for their incredible support for this facility, occupying a premier storefront on Forbes Avenue. And so our student entrepreneurs now have a home on campus for their startup and collaboration activities. And LifeX, which is Pitt's incubator for innovative life science companies, is now partnering with the Commonwealth and has just received a recent $16 million award from Commonwealth funds to invest directly into regional startups. And we certainly thank the General Assembly and the governor for their support for that funding. Another area of research and scholarship that I want to highlight, because it doesn't often make my highlight reels, is the exceptional growth of the university's library system, particularly in our archives and special collections. When I arrived here in 2014, libraries across the country were facing somewhat of an existential crisis. The growth of digital resources and dissemination of research literature was replacing the physical collections of books that we were used to. And there were deep questions about the future of our library facilities, the role of libraries in our campus. Today at the University of Pittsburgh, our library system is thriving. If you don't believe me, go visit the library right after this meeting. It is one of the most vibrant and dynamic places on campus. It's full, and it is full of refocused programs, not just a new facility, where the facility is promoting the kinds of services that, not to replace the collections, but that augment them. And one of those is our special collections and archives. And you'll notice that Pitt is now the home of some very special archive-related activities. This week and next, we are celebrating the grand opening of the August Wilson Archive on the 3rd floor of the Hillman Library. It is an amazing treasure trove of one-of-a-kind material, I think representing some 400 boxes of material from the August Wilson estate, from one of the greatest American artists of the 20th century. Wilson set out to write one play for each decade in the 20th century, the Pittsburgh cycle. And most of them, of course, are set right here in Pittsburgh. He won Pulitzers for both Fences and The Piano Lesson and was nominated for many others. Collectively, these plays, the Pittsburgh cycle, are among some of the most important artistic explorations of the Black experience in America ever produced. And so you can understand our excitement at not only bringing August Wilson's work home to Pittsburgh, but securing it here at the University of Pittsburgh after working closely for many years with the Wilson estate and August Wilson's widow. It opened for public use in January, and we already have researchers and scholars from around the country visiting and actively using the archive. In fact, our university library system has been doing excellent work like this for years, and I want to highlight this. In addition to the well-established collections of one of our colleagues, Dick Thornburg, and with the Thornburg papers, they have continued to add new collections of national and international importance in several strategic areas. They have collections from some of the giants in the history of medicine, like Tom Starzl, Peter Safar, and Jonas Salk. And interesting, and many of you may not know this, in pop culture, our library is now the home to one of the first and now one of the largest collections of horror center work in the world. It started with the acquisition of George Romero's archive, but it's created now a basis for this unique form of popular art. And we've added to it by acquiring the papers of more than a dozen other horror writers from this genre. Music is another important area, specifically jazz, which has such a rich history both in Pittsburgh and here at Pitt. And we've acquired multiple important collections. And these are all helping to make Pitt and Pitt's library system a destination for scholars and researchers from across the country. In addition to all the achievements happening on campus, I want to note the remarkable success of many of our alumni. And this is always unfair. We have 300,000 plus alumni, but I'm going to single out a couple. One, of course, is Frances Hesselbein. She passed away this December. She was a familiar presence and friend to many of you in this room. She was a giant in the field of organizational leadership, having worked with Peter Drucker and others. She served as the chief executive of the Girl Scouts of America and was widely seen as a transformational leader for that organization. And of course, her books, her many books on leadership have received some of the nation's highest civilian honors. And of course, she was the recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1998. Her life was exceptional in many ways, not least of which was its length. She was 107 years old when she finally passed away. But we miss her sorely. Her legacy continues to live on here at Pitt as we have the Frances Hesselbein Leadership Forum and the Hesselbein Global Academy for Student Leadership and Civic Engagement. Since leadership is a good segue to focus on a few more alumni, let me just say we also happen to be well represented in Harrisburg right now. And so let me first acknowledge some of our trustees who work there each and every day, but I want to note a few alumni. First, Deborah Todd was recently sworn in as Chief Justice of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. She's the first woman to serve as the Chief Justice in the court's 300-year history, a historic milestone achieved by an alumna of our own law school. Austin Davis, again, who many of you know, earned his Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science at Pitt's Greensburg. You go Greensburg, Rob. It was elected to the Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor last fall and sworn in a few weeks ago. He is Pennsylvania's first Black Lieutenant Governor, another milestone for our state. And Kim Ward, who I think officially is not an alumnus, but she sure went to classes and attended Pitt, so I'm claiming her anyway. She is the President Pro Temp and Majority Leader. Leads the Senate, again, history making in her own right in that regard. But she is also, as many of you know, a familiar face, frequently on our campuses, and one of our most stalwart champions in Harrisburg. And of course, we now claim her very own Chief of Staff, Rob Ritson, who's now joined the board. We're so delighted to have him here. And of course, he probably has a BA in political science at Pitt too. So it's fitting to me that a university that looks to its region for its purpose finds many of its alumni leading the institutions of this Commonwealth, public and private. And so that we should be so well represented in the halls of Harrisburg or in public service across the Commonwealth or in the companies of the region is a credit not only to these individuals for their accomplishments, but I think a collective credit to the university for the role that we have played in educating and supporting these friends and alumni. Two more alumni are also making history in the world of athletics. I want to call out Catherine Nesbitt, a PhD in chemistry from the University of Pittsburgh. Took an interesting detour. As a grad student, she used to slip out of the lab to officiate some soccer matches for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. And she's now turned that into a history-making career. She is the first woman to referee a professional men's championship match in any sport in North America. That year, MLS players voted her Assistant Referee of the Year. She has also become so highly regarded that last year she became the first woman to referee a FIFA Men's World Cup qualifier. And a few months ago, she led a small group of women who made history by officiating at the Men's World Cup in Qatar. Which I believe is the most watched sporting event on the planet. And finally, our own Darrelle Revis, who was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame earlier this month. In the very first year he became eligible. He's the 10th Pitt Panther elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There are currently only 3 universities with more players in the hall: Notre Dame, Southern California, Michigan. So look out, those 3, we're coming. And as we talk about athletics, I rarely devote much time here, but something special is happening here, and it's noteworthy to see what our athletes and our coaches and our athletics department have accomplished. So consider women's soccer made it to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament this year, first ever appearance in the tournament. Men's soccer advanced to the Final Four for the second time in the past 3 seasons. putting them among one of the elite teams in the country. Women's volleyball advanced to the Final Four, second year in a row. Pitt Wrestling just won its second ever ACC regular season championship and first since 2014 when it finished the season in a leading tie with NC State and Virginia Tech. They are currently ranked 16th in the country. And men's basketball now has 20 wins and is in serious contention for an ACC title as the regular season approaches the final stages. And our football program capped a 9-4 season with the dramatic Sun Bowl victory, finishing the season ranked in the top 25. We are in a new golden era for Pitt athletics. I don't believe that's hyperbole. And one way to see that is what's called the Director's Cup. This is a national measuring stick that ADs like Heather look at and follow very closely. What it does is it provides a point-based system for each and every sport. So it's really a measure of how comprehensive performance and how a school performs. Pitt closed the fall season ranked 6th out of 154 schools. We have never been that high in the rankings before. Now, they're not final until the spring season is complete, but our fall sports programs have already set a school record. This is more points than we've ever scored in an entire season under the Director's Cup system. So our students, our alumni, our fans, of course, are enjoying this. I hope you are as well, but I think it's really important to note that this kind of success is not just what's happening competitively, but it's also about the strength of these programs and the steady support, sometimes through tougher times. And people are noticing that as well. There was a recent Sports Illustrated article that really commented on the transformational leadership of Pitt athletics under Heather's leadership. Heather, I want to congratulate you for that recognition. And not only you, but your entire team, your coaches, your athletes, our hardworking staff, and everyone who surrounds a program like that for success. We're very proud of everything they're achieving and continue to achieve. And so finally, let me turn to some highlights on our facilities. Since we just spoke about athletics, one of the elements of our campus master plan that's now getting underway is our next phase of the Victory Heights program. Some of those are already complete, but this is an illustration of what's next. It's the sports performance complex. It's a 3,000 seat arena for our gymnastics, wrestling, and volleyball teams, dance and cheer. You heard about this earlier in the report. It's also combined with the sports performance center that's used by almost all of our student athletes on campus. So if you try to go to the Pete today or tomorrow, it's hard to get to with all the construction. You will see the hillside next to it already being transformed to make way for this facility, and we'll officially be breaking ground on the construction any day now. Looking beyond athletics, it's important to highlight the other key areas where our master plan, which was a 30-year vision of our campus needs, combined with a commitment to develop facilities that enhance our sustainability, that fit into our regional and urban landscape. It was a commitment to work closely with our neighborhoods and our community partners and to complement the regional built environment. Several of those projects are also rapidly taking shape. I'll point out 2 here on our campus and 2 others. The brand new West Wing, and I don't know if you came up with that title, the West Wing of Scaife Hall. This is the predominant focal point for our School of Medicine on the educational side, is nearing completion and will open later this year. It's a state-of-the-art learning environment with lab spaces to transform the medical student experience and bring it in line with what you would expect from one of America's great medical schools. Also, the Campus Recreation and Wellness Center project is underway. It's a major project, even by our standards here at Pitt. It will be a 9-story building intended to be a campus crossroads for students, staff, and faculty, but also a place of wellness and health. And it will link our upper and lower campuses, providing a wide range of students and activities to support student and community health of our community. Everything from indoor tracks, a gym and pool, game rooms, counseling services, and spaces for quiet relaxation. Also, I want to highlight 2 new buildings from our regional campuses that have concluded construction, are now opening and active. as of January of this year at Pitt Bradford. The George B. Duke Engineering and Information Technologies building is now home to new engineering shops, a virtual reality lab, makerspace, and communal areas for students. It houses degree programs in engineering, computing and energy, and 2 new 4-year engineering technology programs. And the new life sciences building at Pitt Greensburg houses nursing, health sciences, biology, microbiology, and chemistry labs, and shared study space. And it provides space for the health science programs at Pitt Greensburg to continue to grow, meeting student demand and fulfilling important needs in that region of the Commonwealth. And finally, Tuesday of this week was our Pitt Day of Giving. My thanks to all of you who contributed or participated in that. It's our annual event that is designed to bring the Pitt community together, build enthusiasm for giving to Pitt. And this year we saw more than 14,000 gifts from nearly 9,500 donors, adding up to more than $2.4 million in gifts to Pitt. And I know they're still counting some of the straggling gifts that come in by regular mail. So of that total, nearly 1,000 gifts were made to our regional campuses. Others went to all of our schools and colleges, 17 varsity sports, and 54 student organizations. Donors came from all 50 states, 35 countries, and 6 continents. And more than 1,000 graduates from the last decade participated, which is really exciting to see our young alumni stepping up and participating in this way. And also a point of pride is more than 2,100 faculty and staff participated and gave, which says a lot about our community here. So I'm inspired and I'm thankful for the generosity and participation of everyone there. Let me just close by drawing together these observations under kind of a common heading. And I guess I would call it positive momentum. These are incredibly dynamic, in many cases, uncertain times in higher education. To a degree that's actually uncommon in our modern history of American universities and colleges. By the way, a system that is still the envy of the world. There are now open debates and great uncertainty about the role our universities and colleges should play in shaping the national interest. How should we support those institutions? And while we at the university cannot control that external uncertainty, we can prepare for it. And one of the best ways to be prepared is to be in a position of strength. And that strength, in my view, comes from our mission. A mission-based agency's strength always comes from its mission. And that mission is to make the world a better place through learning, knowledge, and service. And I believe that our current momentum, this very positive momentum, comes from a steady focus on doing our mission with a commitment to excellence. It's really that simple. And so I'm really proud of what Pitt is doing right now and more excited about what it's poised to do. But I just want to note that this would not be happening without the dedication and support of everyone that is a part of this university. That starts with this board and your support. It includes our leadership, our administrators, our faculty, our staff, and of course, our remarkable students. But it also extends to our communities, our elected officials, our partners, our alumni. It really is a team sport. And so let me close my report today by thanking each and every one of you. We face a future from a position of strength and abundant opportunity because of you. And I do believe that because of our efforts, we are making the world a better place. So thank you and hail to Pitt.
Thank you, Chancellor, for your excellent report. Are there any questions for the Chancellor? Okay, if not, is there any new business to come before the board? Okay, again, if not, let me again thank all of you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to participate in our winter board meeting. I think it's been a very productive meeting. Lunch is being offered to those who wish to avail themselves of the opportunity in the room we used this morning for breakfast, so feel free to do so. I am told that our visitors have been dispersed out front, so you can go in either direction. Again, I want to thank all of you. We have a lot of work ahead. I look forward to speaking to you, all of you, in the not too distant future. Elder Pitton, thank you so much. This meeting is now adjourned.